recreation, as well as some of the other issues that may arise. You have the roll call, that's all done, I would assume.
Yes, we're all set.
And the first bit of business is public comment. If anybody cares to speak, more than welcome. I would ask that you use the podium only because it is broadcast and people in listening to it can hear the comment. Well, looks like it's, I'm game, if anybody else is.
Everybody's happy.
Well, I'm not so sure. Communications.
I have none this evening. The only thing I had was the legislative bulletin updates, as well as information that was provided to us by State Representative O'Connor. And that's all I have. So I did not bring that packet down.
Okay.
It's in my office if you'd like to review it.
I think there's an article in the Fosters from her anyway.
Was there?
Oh, a big one, on the fraud in Maine state housing.
Oh, now, don't get into that, because. All right, approval of warrants, wages, education, state fees, that's
Yeah, we're
nothing available there.
nothing tonight.
And the report of committees.
I mean, we haven't got any warrants? We had
We
to
have
sign
none
some.
here tonight. No,
had
you
to si-
signed
There's
the
none.
payroll warrant.
Oh.
We did the
on Wednesday.
payroll.
Yeah, we did it. There was a couple of others. I
No.
thought that, oh, they don't have to be.
I do not have them. The finance director didn't supply them to me, but I'll follow up with her tomorrow, and if there's anything
Yeah,
else, I'll
okay.
let you know.
Yeah, we had as far as the committee dealing with the little auditorium up there at the police station, had a meeting last night and reviewed some of the areas that are taking place. It was discussed that we don't intend to go any further until some of the political issues are resolved. And the only thing that was brought forward was the police department intends to paint the wooden section of the building that's got graffiti on it. That's I can't tell you what it says because I don't know, but I know there's some red lettering on the white background, and they're going to take care of that. They're going to take care of the cost of doing it. They're going to do it themselves. So they asked if that would be okay. I felt it would be. We did look at tentative methods of use of the building as far as when I say use, I'm talking about the agreement between any group and, similar to what we have upstairs. There's a fee structure set up. There's a reimbursement set up. Nothing is cast in stone. It's strictly preliminary, and that won't take effect until the board recommends it to, the committee recommends it to the board, and then the board will either accept or reject or make modifications, whatever they see fit. So that basically covers what we dealt with. There is a walkthrough at 6 p.m. this Thursday at the site of the police station, and that was brought about by folks who are interested in the parking. The original question didn't have anything to do with the parking, but they would like to review that. So the board is meeting at 6 o'clock, and I'm talking about the planning board, at the site of the police station on Thursday, the 22nd. And anybody and everybody's welcome. And input will be taken. And so, are you ready for the?
I would only,
I'm sorry.
if I may, I'd just add one other thing.
Sure.
Just to remind, I'm sure the people here, but the audience that's viewing it on television as well, is that tomorrow evening is the candidates' night, being sponsored by the American Legion. The candidates will have the opportunity to make some statements and be able to take some questions and speak to the residents informally after the event. I would encourage everybody to come and ask those questions and meet the candidates. There are 8 of them running for 3 offices. And if folks can't make it, I would encourage them to watch it on the cable station 22. It will be on cable, as I understand, tomorrow evening as well. So
And that's at 6:30, right?
it begins at 6:30. Yep.
Is that gonna be held in this room?
No, I'm understanding that they're coordinating it for upstairs.
Do they have the capacity to televise from up?
I'm understanding they're working very
Oh, that's fine.
diligently to make that
You know,
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they did, the night of election, they had it up there. Remember?
No. Review of the Recreation Department budget proposal. And,
Yeah, if I may.
sure.
We have the Recreation Director, Kim Taylor, here this evening to answer any and all of your specific questions, but I would just like to draw your attention to the bottom line request here, which is $83,862, which is roughly $1,100 less than the previous year. And before you ask your questions, I'd just like to point out a couple administrative procedural things that we sought approval from the taxpayer to approve, and that was, I believe we firmed it up last year's warrant article, where all the recreation fees, any fundraising that they have, or any new interesting programs that create fees are all directly placed into an account to be used exclusively by the Recreation Department for recreation programming. And the intent there, and you will see it as part of this budget package, is that the intent is to encourage those opportunities from happening, and then in the end, trying to reduce the amount of tax dollars that would be earmarked to carry on the functions of the Recreation Department. And this year, Kim is looking at a $19,500 coming from fees and those types of efforts to offset the cost for the recreation program.
Back in, I'm not sure what year, we made the Recreation Department a non-lapsing fund. I mean, it might have got lost in the thing, but I think you'll look back then that the board voted that it was in the warrant. It was a non-lapsing fund, so that anything that was there would go to the next year, because
That is still the case.
that's, and it should
Yeah.
be,
The non-lapsing account, the trip account,
yeah.
it's where money's paid in for trips or discount tickets, other fees.
The other question I've got is, and it's kind of nice to see, but there was no postage for 2012. But there's now, there was, at 2011, there was 500, and now there's proposing 500. How was that covered during 2012 postage? You follow me? About a third the way down the page is under postage.
Yeah,
It
after
lists
supplies.
See, it says
2011 and 500.
Didn't show it there, but we're also showing it again.
It was my understanding that postage was added to all the departments last year.
But it doesn't show as being added here. That's my only question.
It was a year before,
The year
It was
before.
the year before.
then last year.
2011, I had 500. And I'm not arguing the point, there is an expense there, but I'm wondering how it was covered in 2012, that's the only thing.
I added it for the current year. You don't,
Do you have to do a lot of mailing?
periodically, we mail things for the parade, we mail out family letters for
Yeah.
summer
There is-
camp.
there
There is
is-
some, I don't know that
There is some postage.
I don't know that it reaches 500, but, and the postage meter is set up so that every department has a,
It has their own.
has their own.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is,
It's- so that
maybe
it's
this
easier
is
for
a
them to keep
misprint,
track.
and maybe this should be in 2012. Maybe somebody made a mistake.
No, I think the actual number at the bottom, 84,962, is correct for last year's appropriations.
Oh.
And this year is 83,862.
No, I'm not arguing that end of it. I'm just wondering, how was it covered last year?
Well, it could have been, again, it could have been covered a variety of ways. Again, we do have the money that we anticipate collecting, and it could have been used for some
Oh, from
postage
the
expenses,
funds,
right?
Yep.
The single
Um,
funds?
And this year, there's just a line for $500 to cover any and all additional postage expenses.
So the projection for this year is,
And the recreation budget has a lot of estimates, and we don't always
19,000.
spend all the funds, like vandalism. There wasn't anything spent. So there's $1,000 allotted for that. So you could easily
so you're
take.
expecting to raise a couple grand extra this year, according to this?
Yes,
The fees for children to join now, what are they?
I have a little camp history here for you.
Because I noticed actually that the Recreation Department budget has not gone up a lot in the last 10 years.
No, not a lot. No, and this will be the third year that we're taking the revenue from fees that goes right against the operating
Yeah.
budget, so it's greatly
Well, I
reduced
think
to the
part of that is
taxpayers.
due to the fact that there is some fundraising done to offset some of those costs. By the looks, that's,
Yes, and we
basically where it
have an
comes from.
annual
Yeah.
yard sale craft fair to help raise money for scholarships,
Yeah.
to send more kids to camp, and the Huzzy School also contributes to that fund. In 2011, it was $320 to send one child to the summer camp, including all the trips.
That was everything, complete.
Yep.
yeah.
And in 2010.
Now, is there a cut rate if there's more than one in the family?
Yes, yeah, we give a second child discount. This year, we're looking at increasing the fees somewhat to help with the revenue to $375 for the first child, $325 for each additional child.
And now this is
And the
for,
adventure camp is $50 more because they go on some more adventurous field trips.
How does that work financially? Does that offset your actual operating costs, that kind of fee? Is that,
It covers all of the field trip expenses for admissions, bus transportation, paying for staff at some of the events. But the registration fees, no, it's still supplemented by the town. I mean, that's a 6-week program. If you divide that out,
Yep.
it's
now.
still
it-
pretty inexpensive.
Now, the whole program is for 6 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're starting sign-ups a little bit earlier this year to help families, make payments before camp starts if they need to, or
Yeah.
plan accordingly.
Well, actually, if they have to pay a babysitter, if you divide this by 6, it's not that expensive.
It is
It's
not.
only cheaper than childcare. And we do have scholarships for kids that,
Yes, we do.
and that's working out well. We're getting
Yep.
the kids that really,
Every year, there seems to be, more people applying, and,
yeah, and we're getting donations for those.
yep.
Okay, what would you be doing for travel and training? Where do you go for that?
There is a group called SMART, which is Southern Maine Area Recreation Technicians. They have meetings every month. I don't always go,
Is
but,
it something new?
no, they've been around 10-plus years.
Let's say, because I don't ever remember.
There is the
of that.
Maine Recs and Parks meetings and conferences and special events.
That's good.
I haven't gone to too many of them
Yeah.
recently. But it's nice. Last spring, we went to visit Monkey Trunks, which was a new facility in Saco. And we got to our own little test session, so
Oh,
I declined to take a group there, though.
Do you have any other questions, madam?
well, let's get down through it. I haven't only got part way.
She's only at travel and training.
It's fine. Well, no, I'm a little bit behind. Now, accident is accident insurance, I assume,
Yes.
in case. What about the vandalism up there? Is that improved any with the surveillance cameras?
It has.
It has.
It definitely has.
In other words, they're doing more.
No.
Now they can be on camera.
Now, who does our grounds maintenance?
This grounds maintenance, Boston Company does a lot of the seeding, fertilizing.
Who?
Boston Company, they're in South Berwick, June Boston.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I know, yeah, I
Yep.
know June.
Salmon Falls Irrigation comes and turns on the irrigation system and winterizes it. And tests the system.
And we got the Christmas parade, which is very good. Now miscellaneous, you've really cut down. Not this year, but between 2011 and 12, you cut that, what, $4,000? Or close to it, 3,000 something?
The miscellaneous?
Yeah, down
Yeah,
the
well, I
bottom.
think what we're trying to refer there to is that the money that we're collecting.
Oh,
It's not
okay,
actually
okay.
miscellaneous. We're just showing it as a reduction to the overall budget. There isn't another way for us to show it, so that's why we.
Oh, so you're calling it miscellaneous, okay.
Yeah.
Understand that one. You have problems getting counselors or anything?
No.
No?
No, we always have a large number of well-qualified applicants. It's
Oh,
very
good.
competitive.
Good, for summer staff.
Have great summer camp staff.
And you do give counsel training once you hire them?
Yes, we do. And we offer first aid and CPR.
Oh, good.
In the fire department,
That's
usually a
pretty
couple of
much
folks that
required.
do that
They
for us.
yeah.
Yep.
So that's all within house, it isn't a cost to it, really?
There's a minor cost for books and
Oh, yeah.
certificates.
But then-
Very affordable.
Good. No, I guess I'm all set.
Well, about time.
And I'm gonna thank Kim for coming in and explaining this all to us.
You know I'm just giving you a bad time,
Well,
yeah.
believe me, it doesn't bother me,
I know it doesn't.
not at all.
The review of the remaining general warrant article requests from past warrants.
Yeah, I probably didn't explain that as well as I probably should have. Thanks, Kim, I appreciate your
Yeah.
Thank you.
coming in for
I'm
that.
free to go?
No, you're welcome to stay with us.
What I did is I believe I provided you a new draft warrant, drafted as of March 19th, yesterday. And if you go through the warrant articles, you know, most of the ones that you've already discussed, you know, you've gone through 1 through 6, 7 through 14, 15 through 18. And then starting at 18, starting with number 19 in on, you're really talking about additional items that we request tax dollars from, that we have not at this particular point, spoken to anybody. We haven't had, for instance, we haven't had anybody from, or reviewed in detail the community agency appropriations. which, as I added it up, comes up to $65,065.
Well, in that is Coast Bus too, isn't it?
Yep,
And also the ambulance?
right?
Yeah, so
They're
those are
all
the
in
two,
there.
those are the two big ones.
So, I mean, you know, we haven't had the opportunity to go over that quite yet. Article 21 is a redundant article that we have every year to allocate $182,356 for our annual fire protection costs.
You know, they've got it where the hair's a little short here. We don't have any choice in that at all.
Correct.
What is that about?
Fire hydrants.
Oh, well,
Right.
yeah, that's, you've always had to pay for them.
Yeah, it's mandated by the Public Utilities
Yeah.
Commission
Yeah.
when they set our rates. And I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, we had a rate adjustment, and with that rate adjustment, we had an adjustment in the fire protection rental. Article 22 talks about the general assistance dollars. If you like, I can have the town clerk, who is also the general assistance administrator, come in and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, did you read
So-
the article in the MMA bulletin about they're discussing new general assistance laws and things?
Yeah.
Right, there's, every year there seems to be other modifications to those statutes that,
I don't think they've changed the replacement of those funds
These
at
have,
50%.
yeah, these have something to do with those people who have been on TANF for 5 years.
Oh, no, I'm talking about, in this particular warrant, it was 40,000. It actually
Yeah.
amounts to 80,000, right?
well, we receive one half of whatever we spend.
Whatever we spent, yeah.
And, excuse me, and I think last year we ended up returning pretty close to 25,000, so that gets us into that, in that $65,000 to $68,000 range that we spent for general assistance. So there is a reimbursement there, and so far the state
They haven't touched it yet.
has not deviated from that.
Well, no, but they just took 40 million from revenue sharing.
That's good for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's not gonna help us any.
No, and as you know, as those numbers become more firm, and if I get any changes in those numbers prior to you finalizing your warrant, we'll certainly adjust our revenue amounts to reflect those dollars that will be coming from the state.
And also, there's a bill in to allocate it in a different way. 1835, I think it is.
Yeah, but you know, that's the sneaky way of doing business.
Yeah, it won't do it, they won't affect this year's budget,
No,
but
next
it will be
year's.
next year's
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought it was kind of sneaky, too, but anyway.
That was Article 22, and, you know, at a point, if you want me to bring these folks in to explain these, you know, for instance, the general assistance folks.
Well, you know, when we get a full board, the new
Yeah.
members may want to. I mean, I've been involved enough in general assistance so that I understand the formula, because it hasn't changed.
That's correct.
But they're all gonna be new to it, and I think maybe that would be the time to bring
Okay.
them in and have them discuss it with them.
Article 24 reflects the contribution we make to the Berwick Library Association. It's there at 69.5, but I'm not privy at this point of knowing what the request will be. I did talk with Mr. Clement,
Warren?
yeah, probably a month or so ago, in reference to coming in and speaking to you folks. So when you feel the time is appropriate, and I would suggest maybe after the.
Oh, yeah, I think
Would
after
that,
would be
we should
would be a good
schedule-
idea.
Schedule the library folks to come in
And
and talk with you.
And I think they do have the budget, but it's not up to me as a board member to be putting forward. That should be done at the time.
I wholeheartedly agree. And then as we go around, you know, one of the things that you'll see here, and we made a distinction break, and Article 25 basically ends the ballot referendum voting on the warrant. And Article 26 really begins the process of the open
That's the open session.
And as you know, we have sort of a hybrid here in Berwick where costs that are below 25,000 can still continue to be reviewed and discussed at an open town meeting. So I've tried to do the best I can to move. In the past, we had some things that were under referendum that didn't necessarily be there. And so I've moved them back to be under the open session so people can discuss them.
Yeah, I think it's good. But now, the federal stormwater program, we have to raise that money.
Yes. We are,
But-
But I remember when
There's
that
a
first-
time frame, though, isn't there?
Yeah, but when it first came out, when they started this stormwater, I was on the board, and I mean, and we did not have a choice.
Well, I agree, but I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe there is, once it meets the guidelines that are set forth by the government, this would no longer be needed.
I don't believe that's ever gonna happen.
I was gonna say, I don't
Probably not,
remember, I
yeah.
don't remember of that.
Yeah, I think what's occurring now, and there's a couple ways that we can administer it. We continue to keep it separate at this point. But we're part of the stormwater program. We have to meet federal standards for stormwater discharge. We have to have certain reviews and cleaning of our catch basins and reviewing whatever is being deposited into our stormwater system that ultimately gets discharged into the Salmon Falls River or other adjacent rivers. And there are strict federal guidelines and regulations that we must continue to adhere to. So this projection right now is from the folks that have been hired by our local group, which includes South Berwick, Elliott, Kittery. We formed a group to assist and have hired an independent engineering firm to review it and keep us up to abreast of the changes in the law. So the 13.5 is what's being anticipated for the upcoming year.
Yeah, is that what it has been the past few years?
Yeah, it's been running about that now. And the money is then put into a non-lapsing account, and it stays there in the event that that something else comes up and we need to allocate funds for it. That's what the money's there for, the review and oversight.
Well, you might want to put in there into a non-lapsing account. That way, then people know that this, but if this money isn't spent, it's not going back into the unfunded
General
balance.
fund, yeah.
It would be in a non-lapsing.
You can add that as language if you like when you're doing the warrant.
That's something we used, if it was non-lapsing, we put in it like non-lapsing.
Sure.
That was a policy back then, because the previous board has changed that policy, but.
Article 28 reflects our debt service for our annual water bond that we're continuing to pay. I'd have to look at the auditor's report to indicate when that one sunsets, but it's coming.
I think this is the last year.
It may be, and I'll double check it for you. We have a couple bonds that are there, so.
If it's not, it's
Double.
2013, but I honestly think it's, well, this would be 2013. I honestly believe this is the last year.
I'll check it and report
Excuse
back
me.
to you. Article 29 reflects our unfunded liabilities. We try to place money into account in the event that we have separation from service of various employees of the town, which includes, accumulated vacation and sick leave that they may have. So we have a liability amount which is very substantial at this point.
Yeah,
And it
what
continues to move up
what
and
can they accumulate for, say, vacation? How many, what do they get for vacation? For 1 year, it's a week.
It depends on how many years of service they have.
Yeah, I
And it
understand that, but
varies.
what would be the most?
Again, I'd have to look at the personnel policy again. I think it's up to 4 weeks.
And that's the maximum?
I believe so.
Okay, and what about the sick leave?
I believe it's up to 90 days.
That's 3 months. Wow, we're kind
I'll
of.
double check that for you.
It'd be interesting to see what that is. And the vacation is you say, is 4 weeks?
It varies based on the employee.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but the maximum would be 4 weeks. I mean, nobody would have more than 4 weeks. And if they don't take it, do they lose it at
They
the end
can,
of a year?
they can request a carryover of a portion of it to the manager, and he can either authorize that or have them take it.
And how long can they keep that
It's just
Request.
1 year carryover.
when they have to use it
Yeah,
that
say if
next
they
year?
had-
And do they have
say
to
if they
use
had-
their year?
Say if they
yeah.
had 3 weeks and they only used 2 in that fiscal year, they could
Yeah.
ask the manager to carry them a week, or to carry whatever they didn't use. But we try to encourage our employees to take the benefit that's been afforded them, and that's the vacation.
Well, yeah, because, you know, this could add up when they retire to quite a bit if they can,
Yes, it could.
if they could accumulate it.
How many days of sick leave do they have to? Maybe I shouldn't be-
90 days,
But 90 days is how long? You know?
3 months, almost 3 months.
Yes, I know that, but how long would it take for them to accumulate that?
Oh,
It's a yearly package.
I think it's 1 day a month. I think it's 1 day a month.
oh, okay, so it's
I think
12 days a year.
year.
And that they can carry forward.
They can accumulate up to 90.
Oh, okay, they accumulate to 90, okay, 12 days a year.
Now, I'll double check that, but off the top of my head, I believe that's what it
And
is. I
that a
gotta keep.
union thing, a union contract or something, that you
It-
can accumulate?
It
up to
covers
90?
all of our employees, union as well as non-union
No, but I
personnel.
said, is that in the union contract, she asked? Yeah. Bob? you
Yes,
got a-
ma'am.
a question there?
Don't
Yeah,
you have an
Oscar.
employee that's out and been out for quite a long time? He certainly must have used his vacation time.
Do we have an employee out? Yes, we do.
And how does that work if he's used his sick time and he's used his holiday time and everything else?
He's used it all.
So what do you do with him?
Well, the selectmen haven't decided ultimately what the status of that employee will be quite yet.
Because we don't have a board to
I
do anything.
understand. Can you give me an idea how long it's been?
Well, the last time he worked for us was, he had his injury in July of last year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But we haven't had any update on that at all.
Nope. Moving along, in Article 30, I placed just 20,000 in a contingency account for the selectmen to meet unanticipated expenses, emergencies. And then the rest of them are not dollar-related. But if we move down to Article 34, well, let me just back up. If we do Article 32 and 33, I was looking at putting in some language, so this authorization would remain, so we wouldn't have, until rescinded by a future town meeting vote, so we wouldn't have to continually to approve the tax club. It would just be an ongoing item, and then authorize the treasurer on behalf of the town to waive tax foreclosures of property when it seems in the best interest of the town to do so.
Yeah, I think the tax club has worked out to be, people really appreciate it.
Sure.
And I think it don't need a vote in that in every year, I
Yeah.
wouldn't think.
But those are things that you'll have to ultimately decide with your colleagues when we finalize the warrant. And then the last one is Article 34 on what the trust fund balance, the interest account balance is in the Lena Clark Fund at the end of any fiscal year. I don't have the number yet for this year. When I do, I will plug it in for you.
Okay. And we put that into a separate account for maintenance of the town hall,
That's correct.
because that's what it was left for. The one here I was gonna go, oh, yeah, I was going back, I noticed in these, you, from Article 6 through, you put amounts. Nothing's been decided.
Which one?
No, I just put the amounts that you have already reviewed at this point.
Oh, I was gonna say,
That's all.
because we haven't,
Just for argument's sakes, you folks can ultimately make that decision, and whatever you modify there is, will be what it will be.
okay. But I'm not sure, Article 33, I I'm not sure that's not a board's decision,
So,
to waive tax lien foreclosures. I know when we did the mobile home over there, we were quite involved in it, and should have been. One over on Route 9.
Yeah, generally what happens is that once the foreclosure list is developed, there's a review by administrative staff to see if there's any environmental concerns
Yeah, we did have
that we should be addressing.
Yeah, that's what we had over there.
We may be, by foreclosing on those properties, we may be extending the town's liability when we really don't want to. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about within that package.
Well, that was just what the problem was over there, and that's why we didn't foreclose. And even, I mean, there was like over 200-some thousand owed to a bank. They didn't foreclose either, they didn't want it. They just walked away from it. And so we were fortunate, we settled that very, very good, it didn't cost anything, and the fellow that bought it and everything, he built a home there, and it's,
well, all of these
Worked out
warrant
fine.
articles will not be in place until such time as the full board has an opportunity to go through the budgets,
Yeah,
make the recommendations, and that sort of thing. This just gives us a flavor of what we did last year, primarily.
yeah.
Absolutely, and I've modified this based on some of the parameters that we've made in here and under the recommendations of staff, where we have vacated at least 3 warrant articles for dollars already
Yeah.
within the package. So, if in fact you want to, address those or discuss them at a further date, you certainly can as well.
The next meeting, the actual board meeting, will be on a Wednesday, April 4th, I believe.
It is, because Thursday is April 5th.
Right, that is what I've tentatively
The
scheduled. That
election
brings us-
is the 3rd, and the next board meeting would be the
Yeah,
4th,
we're
the
gonna
day
meet on,
after.
we're gonna meet on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Correct, and the reason I put it back on here is I just want to try to get a handle as to what we're gonna be addressing that night. The things that I think that should occur, then I can place them on a warrant for you folks to
Well,
review.
first of all, we have to decide on a chair and a vice chair.
Yeah, you need to elect your officers, and then the next thing, which could be time-consuming, would be to approve all the outstanding warrants,
Yeah,
the disbursements that we've been holding until the new board was elected. We'll have that information.
In
I'll have
doing that, yeah, Keith, I'm just thinking, there undoubtedly is quite a few,
Yes,
and it would be helpful if not only did we have the warrants, but a copy of the vouchers, so that we could cross-check
that,
those.
Selectman Kreitman's is what our intent is
Oh,
that
okay.
night, we will be here, we will have everything with us. Because you haven't had the ability to
Do
be able to
anything like
review
that.
those. We'll have the warrants made up, the bills
Yeah.
that relate to the warrants. The finance director will be here, along with myself, and we're prepared to try to answer any and all questions you may have.
so it may be quite a lengthy meeting, because if, if we're gonna start, and when we go through those, it takes a while to digest some of that.
Yeah.
Well, I sincerely hope that your new colleagues and yourselves will effectively make sure that they meet all the requirements and vote favorably to move these things forward. We have vendors that are now inquiring about the money that they're owed as a result of, our delay in.
Tell them not to get nervous, we're gonna pay our bills.
I understand all that, but, some of
Eleanor
them
is
have
gonna
got,
loan enough money to satisfy the bills, so.
some of them have got thousands of dollars invested
Yeah.
at this point and would like to see a return on that.
It's gonna
And
be like
rightfully so.
2 weeks from tonight?
Yes, they're all well of that. I just want to make sure that
I
that
mean, 2
night
weeks
we're
from
able
tomorrow
to,
night, rather.
unless there's something that comes up that the board does not feel needs to be paid or there's not enough information on it, I would strongly suggest that we move through those and
Try to
approve
get
them.
them settled up.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure Janet will have enough information for us that,
So I would say that would be on it. The only other unfinished business that we didn't do because the board got recalled is that we had put out you realize that we received the grant for the forestry unit for the fire department, and we put that package out to bid. We've received
Oh,
those
yeah.
bids. They've been sitting in my office unopened for months. I would like to at least open them at your business meeting that night, and then provide, be able to look at them and then come back at a later date as to what recommendations staff have on those.
When was those bids supposed to be in? Was it back, how long ago? Was it long, it wasn't that long ago.
Well, when was the vote? The vote was February
13th.
13th. I believe they came in the
After
following
that,
week.
yeah.
The following week
Oh, so
after
they've been
that.
there,
Yeah.
they've been around
Yeah.
a while.
They've been sitting for a while.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get those open. So those are the three things that I see on that meeting on the 4th that need to be addressed.
How many bids did we get on that?
I think we got four bids.
Good.
In conjunction with that, I would assume that the fire station didn't fall down, but we do know that there's gonna be some work done there. Is that gonna be authorized
We authorized that.
You've already
We
authorized it.
that.
now? But we couldn't do anything because we couldn't pay for it.
Well,
It hasn't been started.
No.
Well, there's a couple things that happened there, Mr. Crichton, if I may. The agreement that we signed with the contractor would have allowed him to start, and we notified him that we would not be able to pay the bills until after we had a full board to review them. The contract also provided it really provided a document to him that in the event that he wanted to go to a bank and receive a loan on that, he could have used that agreement to go ahead and do that. So he's waiting in abeyance until after the vote on the 3rd, so he can begin his project and get that work done for us. So,
Okay, but he's ready to go after that,
as I understand he is,
but he wasn't willing to do anything ahead of time.
he was not, he would prefer to wait. Whatever accrued interest or cost that would associated with his borrowing money would have come out of our pocket.
Yeah.
And so it was just as well for us that he did wait at this point.
And what about, we got bids on the roof up there, and we never did act on those.
Right, those still are sitting there in abeyance as well. And I think that, the multipurpose room and we're beginning to work through the process. We have that site walk with the planning board on Thursday up there to take a look at that. They've what is it, not sunset, adjourned our public hearing, and we'll come it back at, I believe, the 5th. They'll be discussing that again with us at the planning board meeting
Yeah.
after the site walk. So at that point, sometime in there, we're gonna want to get a vote of this board as to the intentions of the reuse of the multipurpose room, so we can then continue forward with the project or do something else with the building as the board sees fit.
Another issue, has civil consultants, do they have or have they put out for the bids for the walls, the repair at the fire station?
They've been advised to do that. I'm not quite sure, I have not followed up on that as of this date.
They're kind of lax on that, aren't they?
Well, they may have been lax because the town couldn't spend any money, so they may have not exercised to move forward.
Yeah, but
Because they do have this,
They could have put the bids out and put them as a date coming in April 5th or 6th.
well, they do have this other project that they're, the roofing project or the
There
stability
are some other
project.
issues, though, that we've got to come up with the funding to do that. That's what I tried to state up front. It would have been nice to see what the total cost was, so we could have dealt with that. And that may be one of the warrant articles we need to put in the warrant, is
Well-
to transfer some funding.
Well, yeah.
Oh, we don't have to, that can be done in an open hearing, right?
As
It
long
could be
as
under
it's-
25
As
grand.
long as it's below 25,000, we find a fund balance that we wish to utilize it from, yes. The other thing is that your warrant, your draft warrant as presented, does have Article 19 with 55,000 for town buildings. So as we begin the process and you begin to look at costs associated with any additional costs, we already are requesting 55. We may either have to go more, depending on what projects or what work has to be done. But that would be where I would put any additional money through the annual town meeting warrant, if and so you
right,
decide it.
yeah.
But you're right, we could have a special town meeting warrant to move some funding from an existing fund balance that we no longer use the money in.
Yeah, you could have an open town meeting for.
We could
for
do that under an open town meeting concept with a week's notice, and then have an open town meeting, people could come in and discuss it, and we could give them the options
And
of
if
what we're
we,
trying
and
to
if
do.
we, you know, tell it over the cable, a lot of people will be more aware we are having an open town meeting, and they may appear,
Correct.
so they choose to come. Because we've also got we've got a busy agenda for the next 2 months on this board.
Well, it'd be good to get some work out of you for a change.
Yeah, well, we've got the policies that we've got to work on, too. We never did finish those up. We never did finish up on the audit, on the recommendations that the auditors said for us, things to put in.
The management letter.
The management letter and then things like that. And so, I mean, those are things that I think are very important and we should be working on. So it would be good to have a full board so we can move forward, but, I mean, you stop and look at the things.
I certainly think you need to prioritize those tasks. And, you know, task one, first and most, is the development of the operating budget.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to get that
Get done.
done.
Well, yeah, it's gotta be done, so. you
But
can get on
I'm saying,
warrant
a
article.
lot of these things are really important, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Well, of course, it would be premature to say anything, I suppose, but I have no objection meeting Tuesdays to further the issues that we have, as opposed to a single meeting, or 2 meetings a month, you know?
Oh, I think that you're gonna be, I think that what you've just experienced, we're gonna have to experience all over again with your colleagues.
Yeah.
And begin to go through that process. We will have a new timeline for you, so you know, I believe, when I last looked at it, once the new board is in place, we have 42 days in order to finalize the municipal operating budget. So the warrant is developed and it goes to public hearing for the people to ask their questions, and then you finalize your warrant. So you have 42 days to wrap that up.
Yeah, no doubt, we got some issues that we've got to take care of.
Anything else, madam?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Public comment. Yeah, Oscar?
Thank you. Happy first day of spring.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Good.
I have a couple of questions for Keith. I gotta wait till he can pay attention. Mr. Manager, last week you attended the planning board meeting, and I'm curious as to why the agenda was changed.
I don't have control of their agenda. You'd have to ask the planning board.
Oh, I did. And she told me because she felt like it. And I told her I'd be in here to make a complaint, and I'll be in here after April 3rd to make another complaint, because I don't think that anything the town is posting for public information should be just changed on somebody's whim, because they wanted to.
Well, if you recall that evening, Mr. Stone, the planning board did modify their agenda at their meeting and took public comment out of
Heath.
order as well. Again, you know, you need to you need to address those issues of the planning board's agenda with the planning board.
Well, okay. But what I want to ask, if you had any part to play in it, because it appears to be that, was it a deliberate action so that the townspeople couldn't come and hear your presentation? Or was it just plain stupidity to change it after it's been posted for a week, so everybody could set their schedules accordingly?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Well, isn't it strange, if you have an agenda, you just change it for no reason?
Again,
Nobody
sir,
requested it apparently at this meeting.
you'll need to take that up with the planning board.
No, I'm gonna take it up with the board. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Is it true that the water department charges the rec department to turn the water on at the rec field and turn it off at the rec field?
She's here, she can answer that.
That is correct.
Isn't that a little silly? I mean, come on. One department charging another department for something like that.
I kind of have to agree. Why would they charge a department of the town? It
if-
probably takes them all of, what, 5 minutes?
If this board wants to change that and modify it, you can certainly do that.
Anyone else care to speak?
Well, we should be out trying to help each other instead of charging each other.
Derek White, Old Sanford Road. Going back to Article 19, you had mentioned that earlier, Keith. I've seen that's a repetitive in the previous town articles. The SIP Building Committee, is that still in session?
I'm sorry?
The SIP building, the Continuous Improvement Plan Building Committee, is that still active?
Well, Bob can address that. He was the chairman of that board.
CIP.
We
sorry.
actually had a series of meetings where we went around to most of the buildings because we failed to go to the recreation field, and I'll accept that mistake. We looked at the buildings and then made recommendations, and we put up a time frame of when some of these things should be done. And it runs, I believe, out to 2015. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be reactivated. It was deactivated only because we had completed the work for that year, and we were not sure monies would be appropriated, so we actually deactivated the committee. However, there is still a calendar of potential projects that need to be done to keep these buildings in good, usable condition. And I feel strongly that at roughly 55 grand a year, will pretty much, it's like your own house. It's kind of, if you need to paint it, you have to plan ahead a little bit. And that's basically what this is for. Yeah.
Was there any consideration within that committee as far as buildings reach their expanded life, whether or not there's another, how do you actually plan for and then carry out activities actually looking at to look for the next generation of buildings where necessary?
It ended up where, like I said, we had a calendar, and in that calendar, we listed the things that should be done, and we gave a year when they would be appropriate to do them. We also put, if I recall, an estimated cost figure. Some of the items, for example, this building, can use the interest from that Lena Clark fund that originally built the building to do some repair or upgrades. There are some serious issues, even with this building, like the boiler system is getting up there. And I'm not sure how much that would be to replace that, but that's the kind of thing that if we'd have to augment with some of these funds, providing the town is willing to provide them. Yeah.
Well, the Lena Clark Fund, Lena Clark left money to build this town hall, and she left enough money invested to maintain it. So any money, and actually, they could go into the principal, I think if they had to, but what we had done was set aside the interest every year in order to maintain it, and so far, it has done a very good job.
I was just curious over time, is there, at a point in time when we look at where the police department is, the condition of the fire department and the money that we continue putting in there, whether or not that's still the most logical choice to continue that path, knowing that we're essentially, it's a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid over time, and at some point, you have to realize that it's no longer a viable solution. So I wasn't sure if that committee was still active and actually looking at what is the next long-term solution, knowing that we could only take that plan, maybe that only so far. So, just curious.
But we did use the
Good point.
55,000 this year to repair the fire department. But the money is set aside to do that. The bid was, that's what we
I
talked
guess
about.
part of my point being, that you can only put $55,000 in so many times before
That's true.
it's really, it's putting,
Yeah, it's,
trying to bail out a sinking
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah. And, you know, you're absolutely right. As an example, if this boiler should let go, I wouldn't be a bit surprised, but you're talking the bulk of that money to replace it, you know. And maybe not using the same system, which is a steam system, maybe a hot water system would be more effective, more practical, and less expensive to operate. So there's a lot of conditions that need to be looked at.
well, I know years ago when we did have to, well, I'd say years ago, and we got an estimate about what we thought it would cost to replace it.
Yeah.
Back then it was 25,000, but that was, it's probably 50 at least today.
If I may, you do have a report, and I believe I provided a copy to
Yes.
both of you, from the energy analysis and audit from the grant that we received. All of our buildings have been energy reviewed. There's a pretty detailed analysis and a payback of systems when they expire, and, you know, what our payback is. So that information is available to look at as well, if that's helpful.
I've read through some of them.
Yeah, some of those, it was an energy audit. It wasn't the total envelope of the building. It was just the energy audit. And some of those recommendations are as simple as changing light bulbs to a lower voltage, a lower wattage type bulb. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of it is hands-on that could be done in-house, so to speak. But then there are some things, like the boiler, that's a whole different ballgame. You better have somebody come in who knows what they're doing to get that, to take care of that kind of a project, you know. And, you know, it's always been my contention that we would end up, if we decided to do the boiler as a board, that we would end up going out for bids, and it would be a minimum of 3 bids, so it'd give us as accurate a price as we possibly could. Oscar?
Thank you. I forgot something. Keith, who hired the planning coordinator?
Planning coordinator was hired by me.
And who would discipline that person?
I discipline them.
Okay, so then you should know what happens. When I talked to her and told her I was coming here to speak to you, could I have your attention, please?
I'm certainly giving it to you, sir.
No, you're not when you're writing notes, okay? I'm over here, right here. Anyways, when I told her I was coming here to speak to you and the board, then I'd be back on April 4th, she said she thought that was a good idea because she knew everybody wanted to hear from me. I'm going to take it that she was being a little facetious, but I don't think that's the way for a town employee to speak to any citizen in this town when they ask a legitimate question. Now, maybe you do, but I don't. I'd like to hear your response.
Oh, I'm not going to respond to you about employee matters. I'm sorry about that. If you have a formal complaint you wish to make on an employee, please feel
Do you
free
want me to
to
make a formal complaint?
provide it in writing, and then I will address it. And I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I really don't want to make a complaint, but I don't think that any employee should be saying things in a very flippant manner when they're asked a question. And the thing that I also wanted to point out, I don't know how many people know it, but in that meeting, it's curious that you were the third thing on the item and you were moved to the front. And that just looks odd to me. Thank you again.
Anybody else care to speak? If not, I guess it's, you got anything, Keith?
I'm all set.
No? You all set, yeah?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
and so we will.
Thank you.
And we will
Do we have a
proceed.
meeting next week? No?
Yes, we have a budget meeting this week.
Okay.
Oh, what are we doing for budgets next week?
We can, if you want, we
I
can.
don't think we ought to tackle any budgets next week.
No, but I mean, is there
What do
any
you wanna
left that
do
we
on the-
haven't done?
What would you, no, you've,
The
Cursor has gone
recreation
through
was-
everything
we've
tonight.
gone through it tonight,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you want to skip the 27th and wait for your new board to be on, or do you want
Oh,
to?
what is on the agenda that maybe we should be paying attention to?